Please tell us your name and what you do.
I work for the Historical Society, and we build we build displays when we're not open, and or repair the displays that we destroyed or whatever.
And your name?
Huh?
Your name.
Well, my nickname, known by friends, is Zeke, Z-E-K-E. My enemies use different names.
Okay. So, were you born and raised here in Silverton?
Born and raised here. Born in 1936 and raised here.
And were you here the whole time? Did you?
Well, I had my deal in the military, my 4 years in the military, and I lived actually 7 years in Denver. I was on the fire department in Denver, and what else can I tell you?
Okay. So, what about any schooling or college or?
Well, I keep forgetting. See, there's one right there. Well, while I was in Denver on the fire department, you people aren't maybe familiar with the way the fire department worked, but you worked one day and then you're off one day. We're talking 24-hour things. And so it's every other day. And on my days off, that's when I went to college. And
what college?
well, small colleges have a tendency to lose their clout and everything. Anyway, it was a Colorado department. It was a commercial art school, yeah, in Denver. Can't even think of what the name of it is right now.
And you got a degree there?
Huh?
You got a degree there?
Oh, yeah.
And what was it in?
I got a degree there, and then after I got the degree, I taught there for a year or two on my days off, of course.
And what was your subject?
Hmm?
Your subject was?
Well, everything in the arts. That's a hard question. See, you're asking questions, Steve. What is it you do up there? Well, after I graduated from there, I went ahead and taught some classes and stuff at the college. And that was just a thing that the safety director, or I should say the art director, wanted or asked to be done. See, you're looking at me for answers. What kind of answers you want?
Well, and so after that, did you come back to Silverton?
Well, then I had a chance, my wife and I had a chance to go in business in Silverton. And I was born and raised in the mountains, so I decided to give up everything in Denver and come back to Silverton, which I did do. And so we were in business up here for 10 years or better, yeah.
And so one of the things you did a while back was you and your brother had a museum, a private museum?
Well, him and I had a museum. Yeah, I started this museum business downtown, and we were trying to build a business and have a museum at the same time. Doesn't work very well. But anyway, and then we sold out the business, and then I came down here and said we ought to do this or we ought to do that. And
so that's how you got involved in the Historical Society when you closed your museum? You did close your museum?
Oh, our museum?
Yeah.
Well, after what I did, we merged the two museums. The Historical Society was more or less a gift shop thing. Oh, they had a few mining artifacts and that, but it was minor. Then when we merged with them, then I brought the mining part of it, the major part of the mining, to here, where you're at. So that's there's a lot of questions and a lot of answers between the two.
Right, and when was that?
Huh?
Do you remember what year that was?
Oh God, was that in 1890 or? Well, no, I don't. You know, I could give you like. I don't know what you're saying. What year was what? You know. I'm saying in the 1970s. It was when all this mishmash was taking place. You know.
No, I heard that at your private museum, the snow collapsed the roof on the building. Was that true?
What happened?
The snow?
Oh yeah, right. We'd had we got up there almost every year when you start getting weight on that roof and shoveled it off. And we had a chance to go to Denver for a gift show, you know. And it just so happened one of the largest storms of the year was when we was in Denver. Does that tell you anything? There wasn't anybody down there to shovel it. And I told my brother, don't worry about it, we're okay. Well, we were okay if you didn't mind having the roof down in the basement. Exaggerating a little bit, but we lost our roof, yeah.
Yeah. So you brought a lot of your collection over here.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so how did you get involved in mining?
Just grew up with it. When you grow up in a town of miners, or people that are orientated in the mining industry, you either leave and go find something else to do, which a lot of people have done, or if you really liked mining, you stayed here because this is right in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. That's what I did. I started this mining business when I was actually in high school because my father was a leaser. One of the leasers.
So
that's a lot of detail there.
At least
But
mining claims.
yeah, and so he was always needing help, just like you guys need help here. You know what I mean? So that's what happened there. I just grew up with mining. It was just, and then I just stair-stepped my way up, if you want to use a word up. And become very involved in mining. Well, that's how I made my living. I started out as the lowest man on the totem pole and just worked my way up. At the same time, we was in business, but most of the female ladies in the family are the ones that run the business. I was too busy mining.
Strike it rich. So, do you recall some of the mines that you worked in?
Oh God! Well, the two big ones was the Sunnyside, obviously, and the Shenandoah Mining Company. They were the two big ones, and then there was every little one between them, and I would say, actually outside of I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I could almost tell you that I worked in every active mine there was in San Juan County before. They were systematically closed down because of finances, actually. If you can't turn the dollar, you close down, and so the metal prices were up, everybody mined. Metal prices down, nobody mined. That sort of thing. You know. And both ends exaggerated a little, but not much. The mining industry had a tough time making it. In fact, they're not making it right now. Metal prices are down. This is the only time in my life that I ever seen that there wasn't at least a little bit of mining going on or something. But it's not here. It's really down big time. So how do I answer that question?
Well, I think you did. So do you think there's any chance of a return of mining at some point in the future?
I think, well, of course, you know, is there any chance of us landing on the planet Mars? Yeah, I suppose there is. There's always that chance, but it's all based off of metal prices, and so you sit in New York City at one of the board meetings of a big corporation, you probably find out whether there's going to be a mine or not, because it's all finances. Yeah. Nobody ever says to a miner, well, we'll come down and open up a mine for you because you haven't got one to work in, right? Yeah, they could care less.
Right. So what were some of the jobs that you did at the bigger mines?
Well, when you start out in the mines, in most cases, you're a gopher, so to speak. I mean, you just did all the little tiny jobs all over the place, and then you're always aware of what was going on, and pretty soon you become a trammer. A trammer is someone who moves broken rock, so you become a trammer. And I don't. It's a hard question to answer because that's over a period of years. And then from a trammer, you moved into as a miner. The veteran miners are always looking for a youth, somebody they can flex a muscle for them, and so they said, "Hey Zeke, how would you like to go to work on the contract there?" Boy, we could hardly wait to get up there for that, you know.
Now, you were running a drill at that time?
I'm sorry?
You were running a drill then? Or-
Well, to start with, that drilling was rock drills. Now, these are antiques here. They're really antiques. These are over 100 years old. But that's the epitome of the mining part of it, is drilling, breaking rock, let's put it that way. The name of the game is to break rock and send that rock to a mill to have it processed, and then the mill sends it to a smelter and has it processed. It's a stair-stepping thing, you know. As far as mines, I don't know, the POW, which is the Pride of the West mine. And then there was little mines, 4 or 5, more than that. Let's say a dozen little mines in between all the big mines, you know. Of course, the Sunnyside employed a lot of people in the early days as well as modern. 300 employees on a, let's say, on an average. And that was in the early days. We have photographs showing that, you know. And then the Shenandoah, even though it was considered a big mine, it didn't employ the number of people. I would say the number of people, if you wanted to start doing some historical research, the Sunnyside was the big one, because it started in the 1880s and continued into the 1980s, you know, under different management, under different corporations. One goes under, the other comes up, you know, that sort of thing. It's just a typical business too, based off of metal prices. It's all based off of metal prices, believe me.
So,
I can give you all the fancy talk you want, but it's all metal prices. The mining industry, you know,
did you work year-round?
year round. Well, I mean, assuming that the mine was, of course, the Sunnyside was a big corporation, big mining corporation. We had 300 men working there. Of course, it was year round, 24/7 year round. But I don't know. What else can I say?
So in those days when you were working there, were they milling in Eureka, or were they bringing it down here to?
You know,
Mill?
to start with, you're going to have to get all your readers and explain to them what mining really is.
Okay, let's go on to another question. You said you worked at the Shenandoah, which later became the Mayflower. Is that right?
Later become what?
The Mayflower?
Well, yeah, the Shenandoah. Shenandoah is one of the
Okay.
what a lot of people don't realize is that in the mining industry, one company merging with another, that was a constant thing all the time. Mm-hmm. So I say the Shenandoah. Yeah, I worked at the Shenandoah, but then I worked at this mine and that mine that were feeding rock into the Shenandoah. Where do you put your name?
Right. So someone told me that you were coming back from the mine to the mill riding a tram bucket,
Well,
and you and a partner got stuck in the tram bucket where they shut
oh
down.
yeah, if you rode the tram long enough, something's going to happen with that tram, and you'd sit there for a few hours waiting for it to be repaired. Yeah.
So what
I wasn't in any serious accident. The Shenandoah had some very serious accidents, and actually even lost some people. When I say lost some people.
So can you tell me a little bit about your experience hanging above the river in the tram bucket?
No, I can't tell you because there wasn't any experience. You just kind of sit there yelling down at people that were, hey, how much longer are you going to be? That sort of thing, you know. If you were in the tram bucket end of it, there wasn't a hell of a lot you could do.
No. So you had to wait till somebody turned it back on?
Well, yeah, and there wasn't really a matter of using the word turn it back on. They usually had those aerial trams, which the big companies had. They were based. they had crews that did tram crews. That's what their job was, keeping that tram. It's like if you have a breakdown in your automobile, you're not going to bring your automobile to me. You're going to take it down to a garage. So, I mean, supposedly that's the way it would work. No, I wasn't in any serious tram accidents. Of course, the Sunnyside had a couple of tram accidents, but the Sunnyside, to help clarify the history of it, it all started in the 1880s, early 1880s to the 1980s, but there was probably a dozen mining companies within that 100-year period that worked at the Sunnyside, so there was the early Sunnyside, the old timers. We always referred to them as the early Sunnyside, and they're the ones that started it out, and then it all shut down, and then here comes I'm using the word modern and all of that as in lack of other words. When I worked for the Sunnyside, which was quite a few years, we had no aerial trams. They were trucks. What else can I tell you? I could spend hours talking about aerial trams.
So can you describe how the aerial tram works?
Well, basically, you had, it was really quite simple, the principle of it. Anybody with any kind of a mechanical background would easily understand. You have what they call the large rope, the large cable that the tram buckets rode on. They had trucks, they had wheels. They rode on it. There was a smaller cable that pulled them. So you could see where the principle of it, as long as you didn't have a problem or a tram wreck for some reason or another, the principle of it is so simple that it's hard to even try to make it any more simple. You had a tram bucket that rode on a stationary cable, a heavy stationary cable. It's the one that held the weight of these buckets as they were passing over. And then there was the traction part of it, and that was the smaller cable that was pulled. It was hooked to each tram bucket, or I should say the tram buckets were hooked to it, just the opposite. You're going to have to clarify some of that stuff when you write your bestseller.
But how did they get it moving?
Well, there's basically, see, we're starting to get into more detail now. There's basically a traction, there's basically two different kinds of trams, basically. One was a jig-back tram where there was a bucket here, and it went down on the cable, went down to the bottom and dumped their ore. At the same time that was going down to dump their ore, the empty one was coming up. So it was one of those kind of deals. That's what they call a jig-back tram. The big mining companies did not play with the jig-back. There wasn't enough ore being transported for them. So they went into a circular tram system to where there was, see, on the jig-back, there was only two buckets, one going and one coming like that. Then the bigger companies, when they got going, like the Shenandoah and the Sunnyside, those were the two big ones. Their buckets were like this. They're going around in a big circle. So they would have a lot, like the Sunnyside had as high as 50 buckets on it. And
But these weren't motorized,
no, none of the buckets are motorized.
so how did they get it?
Well, it was the traction rope, the small one I was telling you about. It was the one that was under power. It was the one that was going through. We could start getting into mechanical names and stuff. It's a mechanical. It's the small one, and it was the one that was
Okay,
pulling the buckets around. And when a bucket got to a certain location, it would disengage itself off of that. It would go in to be loaded while these others are still moving. And as soon as it got, depending on what you were doing, obviously, but as soon as it got more oil in it or whatever, then it would put back on the traction line, and it a continuous process. I'll tell you what, Steve, we could go for days talking about aerial trams.
so,
And I love the subject.
but basically it's a gravity-operated deal.
Well, yeah, it was. And that's a good, see, you're starting to get, I didn't want to get into that. But the bigger trams like the Sunnyside and Shenandoah, they're actually, their motorized equipment was actually holding back weight. You get a bucket that has a ton of ore in it, or 500 pounds of ore, let's say, and you put it on a line that goes like this, it wants to go down. And so when it goes down, it's pulling the others up. In other words, and those big trams, like the Sunnyside and the Shenandoah, they were, their problem was holding the weight back. Yeah. And I'm trying to simplify my answer to you.
I think
I know that you're mechanically inclined, so you understand that. I mean, it's a real simple process, really. You got a traction rope that is in constant motion, and you got a stationary cable that is stationary. Just the bucket just rode on it.
so it was like track, basically.
Yeah, yeah. The big cables were, yeah. There was books written on it, Steve.
So how long was the tram from the Sunnyside?
Well, the Sunnyside was the longest tram, 3.5 miles. It was about 3.5 miles long from the mill to the mine. There was certain intersections there that I don't want to get into. You haven't got enough camera there. But yeah.
Okay, so what was the minerals that they were mining in both of those two big?
Okay, that's a simple question for Silverton. Silverton was a mining district, obviously, but it was all complex ore. Every mine in San Juan County run on complex ore, and what complex ore was basically the 5 minerals. There was gold and silver and copper and lead and zinc. There was a few cadmium, and there was a few other minerals that were involved. But as far as what run the Shenandoah, or I should say this, the mining area up here was all complex ore. Every mine had complex ore. If they could carry a lot of extra gold in it, or extra silver, if it was richer, let's put it that way, it's all every mine that I know anything about in San Juan County was mining or milling on complex ore. That was the nature of this mining district.
So basically, if you had a piece of ore, you might find all five or
Yeah,
two or three of
well,
the
I can't
metals
do it
in
right now, but I could ask you, see that, any of them rocks right there, they're complex ore, every one of them. Well, except some waste stuff that was, but basically their ore was, you can even see it right here. And it was complex ore, and it had, if I was to take that and give it to an assayer, one of those rocks, and give it to an assayer, he would tell me how much gold's in it, how much silver's in it, how much copper's in it. The reason he would, his reports would have all that in there is because the mining company was basing their future on, it had to be rich enough, it had to make money. If not, they didn't make it. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Do you happen to know how profitable it was for those big mines? I mean, what they take out in a year?
No, I couldn't. I'll tell you somebody that, you had Terry Morris down here yesterday. He was a mining engineer. He could probably, or did you get Larry Perino? Was he?
Yeah, today.
Okay, well, anyway, those guys, they dealt with the pluses and minuses of some of that stuff. I didn't. I was just a miner.
Okay.
Well, I was into the supervision end of it. I was in the mining safety end of it for years, but it had nothing to do with the prices of metals or whether the company. The only thing that how it would affect me, the price of metals, was how it affected my job. When they said, "Hey, Zeke, you better start looking around somewhere and see if you can go to work because this place is shutting down."
So what was the average wages?
Well, over 50 years, it's big. I don't know, when I was a kid, I was getting, boy, that's a tough question because that stuff fluctuated that way, with the industry as well. But I don't know, I would say that I started out as a kid at $5 a day. But then it went to $5 an hour, and then it just went up. I guess none of the mines are open here. So I don't know what the other mining districts are paying. They pay pretty good. They're paying like $40, $50 an hour. Another guy that would be pretty good at answering that question there, and don't quote me because he'll sneer. It was Terry Morris or Larry Perino because they were both engineers and they both dealt with the management end of it. They did some physical work too, but a lot of times they dealt with the plus and minuses where I didn't. You were the supervisor and you said, "Zeke, I want you to get in there and picking all them rocks up." I can either go pick all them rocks up and stay on the job, or I could refuse to do it and lose my job. Making a joke out of basically the principles of it.
Yeah. So what was your favorite job that you had?
Miner, hard rock miner, believe it or not.
Running a drill.
Well, running drills, yeah. Now these are antique drills here. I could show you modern drills, But yeah, miner breaking rock. I love mining. I like the physical aspect of mining, although it was hard in a lot of times. But I had, I had supervisory jobs and I had safety director jobs, and they were neat in their own ways too. They were, but I just liked working with my hands and stuff more. That's all.
So, you were working for Sunnyside when Lake Emma collapsed. Can you tell us about that?
I could tell you for hours about
Well,
that.
So, and
It's in the book.
right. I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth. So if you just say it's Lake Emma that you're talking about when you were working.
Basically, really what happened is that we got too damn close to the bottom of Here's the lake, and here's the active mine, and we were going like this. We got too damn close, and there was a fault there, a mechanical fault, a geological fault. You could ask those engineers what that geological fault is. But anyway, basically we went up, and it broke because of the fault. The fault was the weak place, and we didn't realize it was that weak. But anyway, when it collapsed, and when it did, it collapsed into the mine, so it totally destroyed that mine. At the time that happened, I was the safety director, so talk about wanting to hide. But anyway, there's in my book, as well as my notes and stuff, I tried to explain that catastrophe as we were lucky. It happened on a weekend. We never lost one person. We almost lost a repair crew, and on a Saturday, and that repair boss came up to me because I was working on a Saturday too. We was under production. We were trying to get as much ore out as we could, and the track boss came up to me and said, "Hey Zeke, we got water coming out of a chute down here." Well, we never did have water coming out of that chute. There was, water in the Sunnyside was a common thing, but it was controlled. We controlled the water, ditched it here, ditched it there. This one wasn't under control. And when that supervisor for the track crew told me that, I told him, show me, and we immediately went back there, and I could see a particular chute. I knew the name and the number of that chute. Everything has numbers in the mine. And I told him, get out. And we didn't have a crew working because it was on a Saturday. But I told him, I said, pull your men out. And there were 6 or 7 of them, and not many. And I was making sure we had them all. We went down the Washington shaft to the bottom, and we had a man trip down there waiting for us, because they knew we was the one crew that was in there. And we went out. We took the crew out on a man trip. Using that word man trip, that's a piece of machinery that guys ride, But anyway, we went out, and everybody went home, did their thing. And it was the next day, the Sunnyside, which was Sunday. I was working on Saturday, and then with that crew, and then on Sunday, it's when there wasn't anybody working in the mine on Sunday, and that's when it came in. And good time. As bad as that Lake Emmett coming in, at least there wasn't any life loss there, because we had probably right in the neighborhood of 200 men and that were working in that mine at that time. Not at that moment, but, and if that would have happened during the middle of the week, we would have, well, not just guesswork. Yeah, we would have lost the crew, that's all. There's no way you were going to escape that. You were either in it or you were out of it. And when it came in, it all come in.
Yeah, the whole lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that was the end of Sunnyside. Quit mining. I mean, all the working places had been worked, were either being worked or as. Yeah.
There were no problems with the unions when you were working?
The unions? Well, that's a complex thing. In the early days, the turn of the century, like let's just say 1900, union was big. That was a mining industry all the way across the country and through the state and everything. The miners were getting, well, we got documentation on it, but miners were getting about $4.50, $5 a day, and then it just worked down. Blacksmith would get about the same amount. I'm just giving you one example.
And so,
Go ahead.
I was just going to take off in another direction. All the big mines had blacksmiths on site, is that right?
Oh, yeah. A blacksmith shop was absolutely essential. Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, they couldn't function without blacksmith shop. The modern mining company, in a sense, they have a blacksmith shop too, but it's so automated with machinery doing work for them and all of that. Mm-hmm. So that using the word blacksmith with a modern miner is kind of exaggerating a little bit. I guess who knows, a mining company can call a shop anything they want. You're in charge of the blacksmith shop, Steve. Whether you know anything at all about it, you're. So anyway, yeah, they can't. That's another thing. There's a lot of detail in in the early days, from the very beginning up until I would say, I'm trying to cut this off as early as I can. I would say up through the 1950s, everything between those two dates had to have a blacksmith. They could not function without one. From 1950s on up to the 1980s, then they didn't need blacksmith shops like they had then, where they were forging and steel and pounding it with hammers. Them days are gone.
So I think one final question, I think we're kind of running out of time. How do you feel that the mine's opening and closing impacted Silverton?
It either made them or closed it. My wife and I would say actually the women would have more to answer that than I. They, you could the business district would be almost this high, and then when that mine closed down, and then up it goes. So basically, the business, are you talking about business district?
Just
I would say the business district is almost the same on the same thing as the mining industry, because it was mining money, you know. So I don't know. God, you're asking, you could write books on that. And in fact, they have written books on that subject.
And speaking of books, you wrote a book. What was the name of that?
Mining the Hard Rock was the name of the book. And because this is all hard rock country here, the geologically, the rock here was very hard, and it's called hard rock. And so it was a complex ore base, but as far as the country part, it's hard rock. It wasn't like down there, Arizona, in the middle of Arizona, and I'm not trying to put them down, I don't mean this way, but the rock down there is much softer, much easier. Like we went, when the Sunnyside was shut down for a period of a few weeks over management and all that sort of thing, a number of us went down to New Mexico and went to work at Ambrosia Lake, which was the uranium mine. And the rock down there is very soft. So that was a very soft rock. They could not use the word hard rock there.
I was informed that you, and I think it was Ernie, went down in search of the Lost Dutchman mine in Arizona. Is that true?
Yeah.
And can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit?
Well, no. Just, I'm not thinking. Him and I went to work for a mining company that was based in Silverton. And they shut the Silverton operation down and moved to Arizona. And Ernie and I happened to have been working at the Silverton operation at the time it shut down. And so they said, "You want to go down to Arizona?" Hell, I couldn't pack my suitcase fast enough. Go down there and relax in the sun,
But
drink
you,
a couple of beers.
but you were looking for a mine. You were looking for the Lost Dutchman.
Oh, well, yeah. Now that's different. Now, that was the ghost mine that's still floating around down there. They keep talking about the Lost Dutchman. Yeah, there's about as much of a Lost Dutchman mine down there as there is on Mars. Anyway, it was a fun job.
Yeah.
We were down there for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I think that's it for questions, and I want to thank you for being interviewed. So thank you, Zeke.
You're welcome.